Hello. Hello, hello. I know everyone's kind of transitioning. That was beautiful, thank you. I'm Quiara, Alegría, Hudes, and it was nice getting a little introduction from Colum about the theater. I think he's, in my experience, right in that it is a chaotic and hurtful place. Also full of love and people, but yeah, chaos and hurt pretty much sums it up. My book is called The White Hot. It is my first novel. I've had my plays produced since 2004. So this was a new venture for me after a few decades of playwriting. And it started out as a play, actually, and then became a novel by necessity because of what I was expressing in it. And so I thought today I'd begin and end with sharing two somewhat long scenes. Thank you. And then in the middle, discuss why it couldn't stay a play. So this is an early scene, and I think the only thing you need to know about this early scene is that our lead character, April, when she refers to Beats, we've already learned that she's talking about Beats headphones, and also that she's talking to you, which is her daughter, and in this scene, her daughter is 10 years old. I was a little bit late, and I heard many references to the performing flea, but I missed the original definition, so I'm very nervous I'm about to be a performing flea somehow. Okay. See. Abuela Omara was setting out the meal, her slippers shuffling about on the linoleum. She had catered to us so long and constantly that her feet no longer rose from the ground. They slid now, an unbroken connection to the kitchen floor. She brought us bowls of rice and beans, pork chops and dull knives. She filled our cups with instant Lipton. All the while, you scrolled, announcing dates and times of the anger management group. I kept telling you, put it away. And you continued right on about classes that met daily versus weekends, blah, blah, blah. But when I asked about the bludgeoning, it was someone else's fault, the same old script. Then, sipping your drink, you made this fine contribution to our dinner conversation. Ew, what the hell is with this iced tea? Abuela Omara, who had finally sat down, rose to her feet again. Stop waiting on her. This isn't a 5-star restaurant, I said. Then to you, pour your own drink and watch your language. Mama Susette backed me up. Sit and eat, por favor. But Abuela Omara shuffled to the kitchen, scooped in more Lipton dust for flavor, shuffled back with the pitcher, poured it slowly with big knuckles gripping the handle, shuffled back to the kitchen, shuffled back again without the pitcher. Why she didn't just leave the pitcher on the table, I will never know. The hovering, it's like FBI helicopters, I said. Mama Susette chimed in, relax, vieja, siéntate, come. I am relaxing, Abuela Omara sighed, and again she sat, but of course without lifting her fork. Never a bite until we were done, oh no. I could feel you silently upping the ante, making a decision, calculating payback. It went like this. You, regarding your now full cup. I didn't ask for more. I said what's in this is nasty. Me, excuse me, go to your room. You, nah. Abuela Omara, we have grape soda, ¿quieres? Me, pour her some soda and watch me freak the fuck out. Mama Susette, relax, the both of you. Me, oye, time to get your shit together. I have to find a school that will take a kid mid-year with a file thick as a shoebox. You, it's thinner than yours was. Me, so I know the precise bullshit you're up to. I paid the price for my fuck-ups. Now you can join the club. Mama Susette, yeah, you're both doing the therapy. God willing, it brings some relief. I'm signing you up tomorrow. I couldn't take it. On went the blue beats. On went Ocean Sounds, volume max. It didn't drown out the conversation entirely, nor the interior crunch of burnt pork chops, but it did create a membrane between me and the Sotos, a thin one. The beats had lost their oomph long ago. Mama Susette, excuse me, no headphones at the table. Trust that those beats did not move. You, are y'all deaf? I said this iced tea is disgusting. I'm thirsty. Me, do not move from your seat, abuela. Abuela Omara, apologetically. I'm tired, Noel. Try to help out. You, that's your job. Me, clear your place and go to your room. Abuela Omara, shh, I'll take her plate. You, I'm not done eating. My problem is this tea. Me, say it one more time, and that whole plate of food ends up on your face. Your response, an extended pointer finger. With eyes on us during its slow journey, you nudged your plate to the edge of the table, let it linger for a moment, half on, half off, then pushed that full plate, whisper-like, over the side. It shattered. Glass and globs of beans splatted beneath the table. A clump of rice flung at my ankle and stuck. Abuela Omara stood up, shuffled to the kitchen in what felt like a slow-motion pie thrown at my face by the universe, and no joke, she returned with the broom. The broom. I told her, don't you dare. I told her, dear God, if you sweep up that glass, but she got in that lean to the side posture and the sweeping began. Shaking her head as the broom moved, Mama Susette put her face in her hands. Brooms don't work good on wet clumps of arroz, even for a seasoned sweeper like Abuela Omara. There were white Corel plates bought at the grocery store, edged with a thin blue stripe, now splintered and mixed with dinner, it all globbed and jammed up the broom's plastic whiskers. Of course, she had to shuffle back to the kitchen for the dustpan too, and then once more for a fork to dislodge food from the bristles. I couldn't turn ocean sounds any higher. The broom noise crept in. I felt on the verge of mental collapse, a half-on, half-off plate at sanity's edge. God had locked me in infinite detention, a principal's office of the soul, and thrown out the key, just to be cute. God had thrown out the key, Exhibit A, how long rice sticks to an ankle. God had thrown out the key, Exhibit B, sweeping is not love, it is violence. God had thrown out the key, Exhibit C, your eyes, Noel, scanning the remaining Corel plates. Clear as a bell on a breezeless day. That's how the voice sent its 3-word message. Got to go, it said. Got to go. Thank you. Thank you. So that was the first part of the now book that I ever wrote, and it features, every art form, there's some commonalities. Cullum talked about contrast and variety. Every art form engages that. I think about control and release a lot. Every art form engages that. I'm actually trained as a musician, and a lot of my musical training goes into my writing. But of course, each art form has its own distinct building blocks. And some of the ones that you heard just now, the most obvious is spoken word, conversation, AKA dialogue. So I actually formatted some of that scene. It's the only part in the whole book that has dialogue formatted as if you would see it on a play script. Of course, another building block of the theater is behavior, how people behave together. This is what we're embodying. This is what we're physically enacting on stage. And so here they are, tensions rising, kind of behaving their own ways, unable to deal with the conflict resolution. One of my favorites maybe my very favorite as a playwright, maybe this is a little bit along the lines of what Cullum was saying, is the sneeze. For me, it's reality. That's my favorite thing to play with, because we go to the theater to see pretend, to see acting and see make-believe. And so every once in a while, reality comes through. For instance, it just came to mind, I saw a staging of Hedda Gabler in New York City many years ago, in which someone threw tomato sauce in someone else's face. Quite suddenly. And it could be that that wasn't real tomato sauce, it was some sort of treated substance, but something really flew in that woman's face and in her eyes. And it was shocking and jarring for the audience, because we're going, oh, crap, like, is that gonna get in her eyes? She's gonna have to wash her face really well after this. So I love the connection between reality and make-believe, and that was a little bit the origin. I always think of, what can I do that's real on stage that will jar an audience in the middle of make-believe? And so this is where the plate came from. A plate really smashes. And yes, the audience might be thinking, oh, it was a fake plate, it smashed in a less dangerous way. I don't know, I'd never actually produced this, so I've never used a glass shattering before. But I was excited about that, you know, to have a plate smashing on stage. Rachel Kushner mentioned last night in her keynote a fleeting reference to duration, and that word really stuck with me and is probably a more accurate and precise word for something I think about as a playwright a lot, which is captive time. One of the features of playwriting is we're all having this experience in the same time frame. And so it's a simultaneous experience of time for the audience, which is so different than a book, right? One of the wonderful things about a book is you can put it down when you need to. You can rewind and reread a chapter or a sentence that strikes you or that you're confused about. You don't get that luxury in the theater. So going back to the plate thing, this is why I had in the scene I originally wrote, I said, it's not going to be we're slamming dishes, right? Edward Albee loves to slam dishes and slam plates and stuff. We're just going to do a slow push. I was playing with time there. Like, let's have the audience really sit there and be like, okay, she's pushing it to the edge. Like, how long, 5 seconds on stage can feel like an eternity. I was already thinking in the rehearsal room, can we get it to 10 seconds? And then how long is it on the edge for? And then can you push it a little, almost you play like a comedian, can you push it a tiny bit more? And then the actual falling would be fast. So I was thinking about captive time in that scene. And one other consideration with the theater, and this is just more a technical thing, is that, those are all building blocks, those are things I play with when I'm writing a play, but every theater has a back row, and so it's a form that rewards projection. The elements of the play need to be seen and heard from the back row, and it puts a limitation on subtlety. You can have contrast, so loud and soft can work, and again, that's why I was doing this kind of soft, slow push for what I hoped would be a more loud and jarring smashing of the plate. But yeah, it really needs to read in the back row, and I think this is one of the reasons why the tense family dinner scene is a staple of the theater, because it's an emotional experience of a group of people that reads well from the back row. It's one of the reasons why I think, for instance, cinema always has so much violence in it. It just reads really well on a movie screen. So I was very happy with this first scene I wrote. The daughter had detention that day. That's what they're all fighting about. She had gotten in a fight at school. And so I left off on the sentence, got to go. And she does. Our young mother, she was 16 when she had her daughter. She's 26 in these events of the book. She's lived a very small life. She's never stepped foot out of Philadelphia. She didn't finish her high school education, even though she's very smart. And the last book she had read in high school before dropping out was Siddhartha. So this book is a little bit in conversation with that classic kind of coming of age and spiritual questing book. And so she goes, and she leaves Philadelphia for the first time. She hops a Greyhound bus. She really never got a childhood, so now she's kind of getting a childhood and an adolescence all in one in the course of about 10 days, which the novel covers. And we know from the very beginning she's writing this to her daughter who she's left. When she says got to go, she actually means it, and she leaves her family and her daughter behind forever. And that's not a spoiler, that's on the first page. And she then later, many, many years later, is telling her daughter why she abandoned her. So she goes on this quest, and I was starting to get worried, it's a lot of scene changes. The set designer is gonna have to be really good. But when I really knew, okay, I'm in the wrong form for this, is later. She has a spiritual experience. And And spirituality and religion is thematic. It's something I've written a lot about in my work. But part of this experience she has involved a levitation. She was going to levitate for a moment. So now I'm getting to this scene and I'm going, oh God, like putting myself in the director's shoes. Scott Rudin wouldn't even go for it if there's a levitation in it. And so how are you going to stage a levitation? So there's a way to go for it really full on with the bells and whistles. You know, put yourself in the director's shoes here. Do you want the audience to see something that actually looks like a person levitating? I've seen it happen twice in a way that was believable. And so two things happen to the audience if they witness that. One is, wow, that's amazing. And two is, how did they do that? Right? It's what you're thinking when you see a magician. How did they do that? Your other option as a director is to do it theatrically, poetically, right? This is Tony Kushner's Angel breaking through the ceiling is a very, very famous example of doing it theatrically. We see the ropes that the angel is flown in on. And so if we did it that way, the audience is thinking, okay, so to me as an audience member, a theatrical levitation implies that really the levitating is metaphorical. And that it might be, if we did it right, it might be emotionally magical and powerful, but it's not actually magical. Anyway, either way, the levitation itself, if you go for a real, if you go for theatrical, it's a spectacle. It makes a spectacle of that moment. And so my problem became that this moment was very quiet. It's a quiet internal experience. And so actually having a spectacle at all would automatically change the truth and timbre of the moment. She's having internal quiet revelations, and actually the levitation is not the thing. So I said, you know, what if I wrote this as a novel? And it's about her perception of the experience, and actually the levitation it becomes an afterthought. And one of the other things, I said, well, I'm doing this novel thing. I don't have a back row to project to anymore, so I can really whisper. And you better believe after 25 years in the theater, I really leaned into that, really getting to whisper right in my reader's ear. It was a real joy. So this is the scene. And she's had the worst day of her life. She has officially left her daughter. And her spirit's just on fire at this moment. I didn't read what's leading up to that, so I just want to contextualize that for you. She's just feeling terrible at this moment and is basically heading towards a bridge on foot. And this is set in Philadelphia, so it's by the Schuylkill River. If anyone knows Philadelphia, it's the walking path behind the art museum. When I stepped beneath the arching Girard Bridge, shadow overtook me. It was cold and echoey in the underpass. A nice language, Spanish, murmured in the distance. Not the big round vowels of Philly Ricans, but a softer Central American timbre. Ah, el bizcocho, ponlo allá a la sombra, pa que se mantenga frío. Put the cake in the shade. I saw no cake from my place in the tunnel. I walked alone there. Only the distant trestles were visible and a bit closer now. Across it, an Amtrak clacked on high, almost there. The underpass spit me back into the light. Here, the path's narrow grass channel widened into a broad lawn. A family had claimed the far half as their own, public commons turned personal event hall. A quinceañera, judging by the balloons. In a tree's diagonal shade, a large cake box sat on a picnic table. Glittery centerpieces sparkled in the sun. Yellow napkins fanned in spirals beneath paper-weighted mylars. A legging-clad matriarch set out Capri Suns, clapped decisively upon completion, then dug through a granny cart to unpack some Fantas. On a low-hanging branch, plastic-wrapped dresses and guayaberas hung in waiting. Judging by the scene, much had been accomplished already, and there was still much to be done. An uncle type popped open the legs of a travel grill, 1, 2, 3, 4, then dumped briquettes into its steel gullet. Boom, boom, boom. The lighter fluid he squirted reeked, even at a distance, and the charcoal whooshed to life with a coughing red flame. Now he clapped, just like the matriarch had, and tossed open a cooler to arrange the uncooked meat by some logic that eluded me. Flitting between them, a boy picked up litter, bopping and loose-limbed, with the easy confidence of having been assigned a task. They had spent real effort packing the supplies so that here on the goose-shitted grass, the setup would unfold seamlessly. They hustled and ordered each other about. The limo might roll up any second. Felicidades. I didn't say it to anyone in particular. They did not hear. I couldn't help but slow down and regard their labors, how they did not bicker, their anticipation and collaborative mojo, little jokes told as the party was prepped, how naturally they staked their claim to the civic sphere, this weedy patch of grass, this slice of Philadelphia, all their own. How else should it be? How easily they merited the commons, the sure ethos that their girl, their growth, their coming of age warranted public grill smoke and Bluetooth volume. What they took for granted was miraculous to me, not entitled but enriching. Smashed Gatorade bottles and dirty Oreo wrappers cleared with gleeful obligation. Coal briquettes lit and lapping orange, the hot air snaking above the grill. This family's candles would catch fire quick. No wicks slow to take, but fulsome ignitions. And upon those candles, they would make their hearts available to grand wishes. 5 men sauntered onto the grass, moving as a gaggle rather than singular geese, a cohesive meandering. They were old and young, but commonly clad in cowboy hats and bright polos, quite the Philly getup. One stocky guy wore purple alligator boots fit for a disco rodeo. They lugged hard black cases and set them in the grass, unclicking latches with a clatter. I saw a trumpet, a clarinet, a tuba, some dismembered, each in its own velvet cocoon. The banda for the quinceañera. The men cloth-wiped their brass in expert strokes, spit into the silvery mouthpieces, plunked those into their instruments with a thwunk. I stood riveted. I felt on the verge of receiving grace. When the uncle type approached with 5 uncapped beers, all held in one hand, chandelier-like, they declined. Warm up first, but very soon, thank you. Leave the beers in the shade, please. One day, maybe, you would have a quince or sweet 16. One day, someone might trawl Dollar General for balloons and matching plastic cutlery. It was an honor I had forfeited. There would be no goose shit for you and me, hija. No mother-daughter dance or candlelit prayer. Would you gown your body in Cinderella bustles or go a hipper route, a sequin catsuit maybe, like Selena's iconic purple? Would your cheeks shine with glitter? Who would braid your hair? The tuba player belched out a few notes, then adjusted his mouthpiece, and now, pum, 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 came a melody like a belly laugh. Really, God? Today of all days? It was luscious and ludicrous, a sonic practical joke, divine intervention, farting brass edition. God's nano violin played for my suffering, pum, pum, pum. The entire banda joined on phrase 2, and the music was a carnival at heaven's gates. The ruckus reached me as if on a breeze. Their spit and hot exhalations found my neck, even though I stood far away. In the same way a falling droplet can transform a lake's placid surface, I was set into motion. My shoulders lifted like dough left to rise. My spine became the tail of a kite. I separated into pieces, a blown-apart dandelion whose wishes scattered. I was cool and expansive, hit by a sudden spring. My shy senses opened. I saw the riverbank at a distance. A tiny frog matched the rock it sat on. Only its pulsing throat revealed the amphibian. I saw a vein in that frog's throat. I saw capillaries stretching from the vein, luminescent strands. Blood swooshed through. I saw a tall oak shading the frog, straight past its wrinkled bark to the tree's internal workings. The luxuriant wood was not rigid, but expansive, an atrium of space, a whoosh with conversation. The trunk cylinder was a transom connecting soil and sky, a highway along which messages roared. The clouds spoke to the roots in a language I did not know. Farther off, 2 blocks away and around a corner, I heard carpenter bees buzz in magnolias. Beyond them, I heard through a church's stone walls, peace be with you, and also with you. I heard the clatter as congregants arose. I heard pocketbooks lifted from pews. Behind the church, a wiffle ball whiffed. Pum, pum, pum. I stretched in many directions at once, Noel, part of some gushing, rushing mechanics. A powerful current swept me along. Within this deluge, the frog and the oak, the tuba and congregants were not discrete phenomena, but native to each other, and I to them. That eye of all creatures should be tapped for a glimpse, a bewilderment. For the shivering wretch, God swapped out her coat. God's coat felt like this, porous, permeable, a threadbare glory. The world passed through me, and I through it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So yeah, later, a few pages later, it mentions that she felt herself land and wasn't even sure if she had levitated. She was like, oh, I felt myself land. But the levitation wasn't the point. It was this experience of participating in the world, which was a new experience to her. And I didn't know how to stage that without turning it into a spectacle. So maybe I'll end, because the theme of this conference is pay attention, I realized I had a little passage in the book that spoke to that, just a few sentences. She's listening, she meets a hot man on the road and they get it on, and he's an audiophile and he plays her Charlie Mingus for the first time in her life. And so she's listening to jazz, and she's never heard jazz. As I mentioned, she had a very sheltered life. And she says, I realized that's why they call it paying attention. My focus was an entry fee, the ticket price to a possible awakening. I ponied up generously. Thank you.